What's going on, guys? Sinjin HalfthunkYGO here with HalfthunkYGO, and we're here with John Michael, aka the MarvelousMilkManTV, and we're going to be going over the future decks for Cyberstorm Access, and more specifically, one deck for Cyberstorm Access that you need to look out for and how to prepare for it, and we're going to jump right on into that.
They are not once per turn, and my web browser crashed.
We're leaving this in. Leaving it in. Alright, go ahead. Let's try it again.
Alright, we're trying it again with my camera being unfocused. What is happening?
Technical difficulties. Just run with it.
I won't. I refuse. My camera's better than this. You're better than this. Look at me, right here. Look at me. Focus. Whatever. Okay.
Jumping into the deck profile for the 5th time.
Yeah, the 5th time here. Sorry my camera's blurry. I don't know. Apparently whenever I want to do something, it doesn't work. So I'm going to cover all of the Purrely cards. Not so much the non-engine. We will cover the non-engine because I have a bunch of different options down here that can be included in the non-engine slot.
Correct. So that's a big thing. This deck profile is a good pure version of Purrely or however you want to pronounce it, but this is like a good pure version, like as it stands by itself. All these we cover are going to be options that you can do with the deck. The deck has a lot of utility, a lot of resources, a lot of things that it can do, and flexibility. So we'll cover that too towards like the tail end, but we're going to do this briefly.
Yes. So Purrely, however you want to pronounce it, is like the main monster of the deck, obviously. The whole deck revolves around this cute little thing. It's not a hard once per turn, and that is a very unique thing about every card in this archetype, sans Purrely Lily, which releases in Cyberstorm Access here in a couple of weeks. So Purrely's effect, if it's normal or special summoned, you excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, and if you do, you add 1 excavated Purrely spell or trap card to your hand and place the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So very similar to Area 0 for you Sky Striker enjoyers out there. Its second effect is, once per turn during your main phase, you can reveal a Purrely quick play spell card in your hand, special summon 1 XYZ monster from your extra deck that mentions that card by using this card you control as a material, and then you attach that card to the summoned monster. This is treated as an XYZ summon. So as you can already see, this card is very similar to Ray, and it pairs with each of its memories in order to make these cute little evolutions down here.
Yeah, it's like the perfect blend of Zodiac and Sky Striker.
Mm-hmm. And then next, this is the card that has been on the radar and has increased this deck's cost quite a bit.
This is the card.
Last month is Purrely Lily. This card is a hard once per turn. And its effect reads, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add 1 Purrely card from your deck to your hand except a quick play spell. So you'll notice we have a field spell and we also have a trap in our deck. And this card really allows you to not waste your searches off of the next card we're going to go over on those 3 cards. Then you can target 1 Purrely quick play spell card in your graveyard. You're going to special summon 1 XYZ monster that mentions it from your extra deck using this card as a material. If you do, attach that target and it's treated as an XYZ summon, similar to just normal Purrely. So these are your only 2 main deck monsters, really, other than your non-engine slots. My friend Purrely, this card is kind of obscene. It's a little wild. So it's a continuous spell, so they have to deal with this card. And its effect reads, you can pay 500 life points, reveal 3 Purrely cards from your deck, except for my friend Purrely. Your opponent randomly picks 1 to add to your hand, also shuffle the rest into the deck. So you can essentially, confirm which card you want. Like you're guaranteed the card that you want if you have 3 copies of it in your deck, which is pretty neat. But the effect does not end there. If a face-up Purrely XYZ monster or monsters you control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, even during the damage step, which is a very rare clause on cards like this.
Yeah, very.
You can
rare.
add up to 3 Purrely quick play spells with different names from your graveyard to your hand. So essentially, what this means is if you have, you've established your end board and they use the resources to out your towers-like monster, which we'll cover later. But they cannot out this card before doing so, or in the process of doing so. You're adding 3 quick play spell cards that are all emergency teleports from your grave to your hand. So now we're going to cover the memories. These are kind of like the emergency teleports of the deck. They all have the same second effect. So they all are discard a card to special summon a Purrely monster from your main deck. That is not cost because you have to resolve the first effect beforehand. So this is probably the worst memory, but it corresponds to the best extra deck monster. So Purrely, Delicious Memory, you choose a monster on the field until the end of the next turn. It cannot be destroyed by battle. After choosing a card, you can apply a following effect. That effect is what I mentioned earlier. You discard a card. If you do, you special summon a level 1 Purrely monster from your deck. And then it has a secondary effect. All of the memories do. This one happens to be it gains 300 attack and defense for each material attached to it. These cards, like I said, are not hard once per turns, and they do stack. So if you find yourself in a situation where your Purrely extra deck monster has multiple of these, instead of 3, it'll gain 6, or if it has 3 equipped, it'll gain 9 per material. So you can see how you can kind of one-punch man your opponent very quickly with this deck. Purrely Happy Memory is probably the third best memory. I kind of have them organized in order, like from worst to best. This one, you can choose a card on the field. The next time it would be destroyed by a card effect. It's not destroyed. The following effect is the same. You special summon from your deck. And then its special effect is this card can attack monsters a number of times each battle phase up to the number of Purrely Happy Memory attached to it, plus 1. So once we go into the extra deck, I'll kind of explain why that is relevant. But yes, this is a very strong going second option for the deck. Next, we have Purrely Pretty Memory. Until Cyberstorm Access actually drops, this is considered largely the best memory currently. So the actual effect of the card, each player gains 1,000 life points. The same special summon from deck effect applies by discarding a card. And then its secondary effect is once per turn, you can send one other card you control to the graveyard, then target one card your opponent controls, attach it to this card as material. So just keep in mind, all these secondary effects are effects that are applied to the monster these are equipped to. And now the new one, which really just sends this deck over the edge, is Sleepy Memory.
Yeah, Sleepy Memory's crazy.
Like Pretty Memory, it doesn't require you to already have a monster on the field, which is very important. So this effect is the next battle or effect damage you take becomes 0. So it's just a free activate, and obviously you discard a card to special summon. However, its material effect is once per turn during your opponent's standby phase, you can draw one card. We'll explain why that's relevant later. Then you have the Stray Purrely Street, that is their field spell. It reads that your opponent cannot target Purrely monsters you control with card effects the turn they are special summoned. And then if a Purrely XYZ monster you control leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can special summon one level 1 Purrely monster from your deck or graveyard. Its secondary effect here is during the end phase, you can target a Purrely XYZ you control and equip a quick play spell card from your deck or graveyard as a material.
There are
so you can see,
so many applications for this card alone. Like we dueled earlier, and I had such a powerful opening hand, but I couldn't actually access any of the cards that made it powerful because this card just straight stopped me.
Yes, so you can see, if anything at all, this will shift the meta in terms of hand traps and non-engine cards, because cards like a Rise Heart or Fenrir have to deal with this card before they can deal with any of the cards or even be an interruption to any of these Purrely plays, because they all target.
It shuts down like your imperms, all that kind of stuff. So it's
effect
really,
failure.
Very powerful. Very powerful.
Next is Purrely Yeep. I don't know why they changed this from Leap to Yeep, but here we go. So this is kind of a summization of this card. It's a rank up magic. But you can, you target a Purrely XYZ. If it's a rank 2, you can rank up to a level 7. If it's a level 7, you can rank down to a level 2. But that card is returned to the extra deck during the end phase of the next turn. So you obviously keep it for, your opponent's entire turn, all of your turn. Then during the end phase it would go, which by then you're probably killing them or overlaying again on top of that card.
Right. The Zodiac Cell effect.
Obviously, yes, it transfers all the materials once you rank up. But it also has a secondary effect, which really helps with your grind game. As you can see, all these cards kind of replace themselves. They can get shuffled back, they can get added back to the hand, very similar to Sky Striker. This card falls in that category as well. You can banish this card from your graveyard, and then target up to 3 Purrely monsters in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck. So just a free little mini Pot of Avarice, Jar of Avarice-esque effect.
And searchable.
Yes, it is searchable by Lily.
Yep.
These two cards are the ones that we're talking about earlier, saying that we didn't really want to use our My Friend Purrely on them, and it works out perfectly in the combo. So now we're going to hop into the extra deck. I'm going to start with the best one. Actually, we'll start with the least best and then work our way up like we did with the memories.
Yeah.
So Happiness is considered the worst one. However, it is very strong going second. At the end of the damage step, if this card battled, you can add a Purrely card from your deck to your hand. Also, if this card has Purrely Happy Memory as a material, you can half the attack of one face-up monster on the field. So this card will, unless you're playing it in Sprite for some weird reason, will always have Happy Memory as a material. This is the one that will grant you an additional attack. All of the Purrely XYZ level 2s have an effect that up to thrice per turn. I love that wording.
Same.
It was like the last card that had it.
I love it.
Can equip quick play Purrely spell cards once you've activated them as a material. And then this card's second effect is you can then return one spell or trap card your opponent controls to the hand if you equip said Purrely quick play spell. Now, the reason this is relevant with Happy Memory and going second is in combination with Delicious Memory, you can essentially target an opponent's monster. It can't be destroyed by battle this turn. You can then use the Happy Memory to rank up into Purrely Happiness. It will grant it an additional attack, so you'll attack that monster. This card's effect will activate it at the end of damage step. You'll add another memory. You'll activate its quick play effect, because keep in mind, you can then apply the effect to discard and special summon a Purrely. You don't have to. So you'll add this, activate it, equip it as an effect, it gains an additional attack. Add another one, equip it as the effect, it gains an additional attack. Attack again, and then add whatever other Purrely card you want from your deck to your hand. It's very powerful, it's very easy to OTK with this card, especially if you can get like a Delicious Memory or something else underneath the Happiness. Next, we'll go on to Beauty. This is considered the second best. This is essentially an M-Perm. Target an effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of the turn. It has the same thrice per turn you can equip. And then its special effect is you can change the battle position of one monster your opponent controls once you've re-equipped. This one, it's not used as often, really. I mean, there are implications with this card, but it's largely considered probably the worst one. We'll go to Plump next. Plump is widely considered the best one. There were even some Sprite players this format talking about using this card just to make a 6-mat Zeus easily. So its effect, once per turn you can target up to 2 spells and traps in the graveyards, either graveyard. Attach them to this card as a material. It's a quick effect if it has its corresponding memory, the Delicious Memory attached. Same thing, up to thrice per turn. When you activate a Purrely quick play spell card, you can attach that. And then its secondary effect is you can then banish one monster on the field to the end phase, so it has a built-in Farfa effect. While that effect is very strong, the main reason this card is so powerful is it allows you to bridge into the boss monster. So I'll cover this one next, and then we'll circle back to the other level 7 or rank 7 because it's not as strong. This card says you can also XYZ this monster, XYZ summon this card, by using a rank 2 monster control with 5 or more materials. As you can see, Plump just on summon has 2, then it can suck up 2, and it's a quick effect, so it can suck up 2 more during your opponent's turn, right? Transfer its materials to this card. This card is unaffected by your opponent's effects while it has 5 or more materials.
Activated effects.
You can detach... yes. You can detach 2 materials from this card, then target 1 card your opponent controls or in their graveyard, place it on the bottom of the deck. This is a quick effect if this card has a level 1 Purrely monster as a material, which it always will. The important thing about this is in the standard combo line, you will have 6 materials under this card. So once you use the effect once, yes, it can be affected, but a smart player will know how to use this card and when to use it. And it's not once per turn, and it's not once per chain. So you can shuffle 3 cards back into your opponent's deck with this card. Then we'll circle back to Purrely Happiness. This is the worst of the rank 7, but it also has its applications. During its main phase, it has the same, rank up effect if it has 5 more materials. Yeah. Yes. During your opponent's main phase, you can negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent controls until the end phase. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation if this has a level 1 Purrely. So a free Dark Ruler, no more, that they can't respond to. And then if this card attacks while it adds 5 or more materials, you inflict 1,500 damage to your opponent. So you can also see the OTK potential or the one-punch potential with this card and the Happy Memory because it has, 3 of these equipped. It's attacking 3 times as a 2,500 body, and it's inflicting 1,500 damage per attack declaration. So that is the basic deck profile. What I think Sinjin and I are going to do now is we're going to cover the options for the non-engine, because as we've seen in the OCG, some of these are, have not been played in the OCG because different ban lists, etc. But there are a lot of different options that you can use because all of these cards do require discards. So you want to have some type of good outlet to facilitate those. Like Sinjin mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is more of like a pure build because we don't know what the ban list is going to be. So obviously like Gamma, Droll, Book of Moon, cards like this are seeing a lot of play currently. And Effect Failure is just a good, not hard once per turn card that you can draw into.
We've discussed making this potentially Nibiru, but obviously we'll dictate that more as the format fleshes out.
Yes, and I guess one more thing to circle back before we go into the other options. I just want to explain one of the strong combos with the Sleepy Memory. The reason we play so many non-engine cards in the form of hand traps rather than other things. This card, during your opponent's standby phase, if it's a material, you draw a card like we covered earlier. However, in the combo, most of the time with Plump here, in combination with the field spell, you'll end with 2 or 3 of these equipped to this card. So when you pass to your opponent, during their standby phase, you'll draw 2 or 3. In the combo, you also search Purrely Yeep, which will allow you to rank up into the towers. It's now a new XYZ monster, so you can draw 2 or 3 more cards. So it's, a +4 to 6 on your opponent's turn. And that is incredibly strong. It gives you crazy follow-up. And I've even considered playing maybe like 1 to 2 like Scrap Irons, not Scrap Iron, what is it, Swift Scarecrow, like they played in the Dragon Roar format.
Yeah.
Because if you survive, they will die. It's that simple. Okay, so now we're gonna cover the options that you can implement in this deck.
We're gonna be kind of brief too, because obviously everything's kind of straightforward once we kind of give you the explanations. So it's just gonna be like this is the implications, and we'll move on to the next one, so it's not like too long.
Yes. Okay, so Nimble package. Obviously, you can discard Angler for any of these, get the Nimbles. That pairs very well with the Sprite package. It can add some, inconsistencies to the engine though, but it also can elevate your ceiling so you can do more.
Right. And the Sprite, and what he's saying too by saying with the Sprite package, he's saying that you can run both independently. You don't have to run both. You can run either or, but they do work together.
Or you can run both.
Right.
It's just hard to fit, both engines into a 40 card deck.
Right.
Which I think a deck like this excels at 40 cards.
Yeah.
The Adventure engine, this did see some play in the OCG, but obviously their engine is very limited.
Yeah.
Ours is not. Obviously, Water Enchantress is a very strong card to discard. So this kind of gives you an Omni Negate on top of your board.
Right.
The most popular one in the OCG is probably Volcanic Shell. It's very straightforward. Discard it, pay 5, get another one, keep discarding to continue your plays. One that I think is pretty underexplored, or
yes.
I guess 2 that I think are underexplored are the next 2. The Naturia engine has been very popular with Runic as of late, and as we all know, Naturia Sacred Tree loves to be discarded and get free pluses. I think this deck not having a very strong normal summon, or most of the time a normal summon at all, in combination with this engine, I think this will be something that needs to be explored in the format.
Absolutely. We discussed this heavily, very heavily.
Yes. I've been messing around with this. There are some crazy test hands with this where you're ending with your towers. Well, the ability to rank up into your towers on your opponent's turn and draw 4, and then have Nat Beast Barkion.
Which is nuts.
Yes, pretty
nuts.
Next, obviously, everybody's heard of the Runic stuff. It's been excelling heavily throughout this format, especially since the format is so wide. I think the same can be said here. You don't care to discard extra runic spells when you have Fountain up because you're going to replace them in your hand with the runic cards. And the addition that the Sleepy Memory combo adds is you're drawing 4 to 6 cards in a runic deck on your opponent's turn, and then drawing 1 to 3 more cards during their turn with the runic fountain. So I think the card advantage kind of speaks for itself. It kind of snowballs very quickly.
The big disadvantage to the runic package, however, is that the deck's core weakness, which is anti-spell, things that take care of any kind of spell negation, becomes even more amplified, and it becomes slightly more fragile to those kinds of interruptions.
Yes. This is probably the second best. Might be contending for the best slot in the OCG right now.
I'm a fan.
Is the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation with Cobalt Eagle.
I'm a fan.
Yes, this is very strong because not only is this a free discard, it also allows you to add, the Stray Purrely Street, the field spell, to your hand without wasting your search from My Friend Purrely, which is very valuable. And Cobalt Eagle allows you to fix the ever so annoying problem of if you draw your Crystal Beast, then the engine's dead. Because this deck, like I've mentioned a few times now, does not have a strong normal summon. So you can just normal summon the Eagle, put it at the top of your deck, and proceed. Something that was explored very smallly in the OCG was the Dark World engine, because these cards are discarded for effects, not for cost.
Which is cool.
In theory, you could, discard Snow, add Snow, discard Snow, add Snow, discard Snow, add Brow, discard Brow, draw a card. It would do, the same placeholder that Volcanic Shell does, but you don't have to pay life points, and you get to draw at the end of that combo.
You also you also get a form of interruption because you can still play. It takes away from the main combo because you're obviously committing more to another archetype than you would, but you can still play a mild Dark World package to where you can end up with some other Dark World monsters to kind of play around, get a little bit of effect negation with the fusion and everything. But again, that also takes away, but it gives the normal summon more value than what you have currently because it's just not there at all.
Yeah, it just takes away a lot of consistency,
Yeah.
and you don't have room for impactful non-engine.
Yeah,
Obviously, Dark
huge.
World would be considered the non-engine of the deck, but it is an engine in itself, so you're still, you don't have any interruption with that other than maybe the fusion monster.
Right.
So I will circle back before we move on to the next segment, which is going to be talking about how to combat this deck, what cards are good against it, what cards are good to combat the cards that are good against it if you plan on playing this Purrely deck. I want to kind of explain again why I chose these cards. Obviously, we don't have a ban list, like I said before. Gamma and Droll are just very strong cards right now. They've seen a heck of a lot of uptick in the competitive scene. And in this combo, at the end of your combo, you either end on Ensemble, or you can link both your extra Purrelys into Lambda. So say you do the ever so coveted E-Telly and they Ash, and you Gamma. They don't do that. They don't fall for it because they have a big brain. Your Gamma isn't dead in your hand at the end of the turn, and it does add a layer of protection. So that is it for this segment, and we are going to move on to the next segment where cards are good or bad or both against this deck.
Whoosh.
All right, moving on to the next segment. These are going to be cards that you can side or main that are strong against the strategy that we've been talking about. So first on our list are going to be all of the kaiju-esque monsters. The kaijus and Santa Claus.
Anything that takes out of towers, honestly.
Yes, these have obvious implications. You can tribute over their towers monster, and bam, you have outed it. Do keep in mind with these, if they do have the continuous My Friend Purrely up, they will add 3 quick play spells from their graveyard to their hand.
Also, worth noting as well, because some people might be questioning this, there's a reason Slumber isn't in here. Slumber does not affect the towers monster, so.
Yes, and I mean, obviously these 2, I guess these 3 are the most popular kaijus, so I just included all of them because who knows, you might be a Cyber Dragon duelist and you need to play this one, or this one, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I guess the more main deck options are going to be like Droll and Ash.
Droll's gonna be huge. Huge.
Droll for obvious reasons. I mean, Droll's good in this format. Droll's good against, Cash. It's good against this Purrely strategy because it adds a bunch throughout the turn. So I think we'll see a very big rise in this card, just like the OCG has.
If not in the main,
I
at
think
least
it'll
the side.
Yes, I think this will be a very impactful card. Ash, it's not like super impactful, but it is a card that, you know, can kind of catch them off guard at like a key choke moment. Like if you wait until they're later in their play, they only have 1 or 2 cards in hand, and maybe they're going for that final like closing shot to summon the Lily. Ash can be pretty impactful there. Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. This card is pretty much always talked about when a new tier 1 deck emerges.
Yeah.
If you're worried about the towers, as soon as they special summon the Purrely monster, you can cherries the towers away. It's that simple, right? So they can't get access to it. XYZ Encore. Now, I know there's going to be confusion here because it says target a face-up XYZ monster your opponent controls. This has already been ruled, just like back in the day, that it targets the materials underneath the monster, not the monster itself. So this will out the tower's monster. Do keep in mind, it will special summon those monsters that were underneath it to the opponent's field. So it will trigger the Purrely monsters that they have as materials. Which is why I think this is probably the worst of the two. When we talk about Herald of the Abyss, I do think that this card is pretty much going to always be the better option because it targets the player.
Yeah, Herald's crazy. Herald's super crazy.
So you just pay 1,500 life points, you declare a monster type and an attribute. Your opponent has to send a monster like that from the field to the grave, and they also don't get the My Friend Purrely effect because they are the ones sending the card. You are not the one sending the card. So the only time they would ever really be able to work around this, they had double, but then it also has the text that they can't use the effects of monsters sent with that name. So even if they somehow we come up with a cracked combo to make double noir, it's not going to be very relevant. Now for the trap cards, D-Barrier. This deck is very similar to
Zoo.
Branded.
Yeah, that's
Branded Despia in the terms of how strong Dimensional Barrier is against it. Obviously, every card in the extra deck is an XYZ, Sans, Link Kribo, and Lambda in my build. So obviously, this calling XYZ will shut down the deck.
super powerful.
Anti-Spell Fragrance. This card's good in pretty much any format. The only thing that can, negatively impact this card is, they are all quick play spell cards, and they don't have to apply the second effect. So in theory, they could just chain, to at least, get the ball rolling. But it will definitely hinder their board and make it a lot less strong.
And that card back with, like that card back with any kind of like negates or interruptions or anything to just kind of like to support the card itself kind of alleviates that issue. So in theory, and this is something we discussed, as we don't know what the future holds just quite yet, in theory, if there is any kind of like negate boards or anything like that, if you were able to put something to kind of just back the anti-spell up, you kind of just win.
And then Sinjin told me he would be the one that talked about Goes in Match.
Yes, okay. So
I think it's pretty straightforward, but take it away.
So Goes in Match is exactly like Rivalry in the terms of like it puts them into a very bad spot for most of the game. I do like this card in theory, and I wanted to put cards I think that were powerful. We discussed what we thought would be really powerful against this deck, and I think this card does do that, but I think that this card, and this is why it's so low, is arguably very weak. There are still things that they can do. There are still plays that they can make, and I think that there are better options. I don't think this really warrants a deck slot, and that's really what I wanted to talk about, but I do think that it is a powerful card, and if your deck is able to just get them there the next turn and kill them, this card becomes super powerful and just saying, hey, here's my board, can you out it? No, you have this little tiny thing, die. I think that's pretty relevant, but other than that, other than decks that capitalize on that, I don't think it's worth it at all.
And next we're going to talk about the hand traps that I don't think are as impactful. So Gamma is, hypothetically very strong, right? Because they're summoning a level 1 monster. They've already technically negged 1, so if you negate that effect and destroy that monster, they've went neg 2 essentially, right? The only issue with Gamma and Ghost Ogre are all of those cards are quick play spells, and they don't have to apply the effect where they discard a special again. While they likely will, they don't have to. So in a world where you Gamma, the Purrely monster, it will still negate the effect, but they could still chain, one of their memories, save the monster from dying, and then discard another card, special summon another Purrely. You've now used your Gamma, and, that was kind of a wash, right? So cards like Gamma and Ghost Ogre can be used. I just think they're, not as strong. The same kind of goes for Nib, right? So Nib can be very impactful, very strong card. Because, if they do the full combo, they are going to summon more than 5 times. It will wipe the board. However, if they have the continuous spell, my friend Purrely up, Nib wiping the board will just give them their 3 equip spells back to their hand.
And they're
None
not
of them are hard once per turn, which we talked about in, the main part of this video where we covered the main deck. So essentially, they can, do the same board. And if you're nibbing them, especially if they're going second and you have Nib in your hand, because you're like, oh, well, they have to break my board, and if they do, I'll nib them. That opens them up to the happiness OTK line where they can make Nib, 1500 attack at 4 times, rank up with Purrely Yeep or whatever, and then attack 4 more times and inflict 1500 per. So I think this is a very risky card, but if used correctly, it could be somewhat impactful.
I think that goes to be said with all 3 of the last cards. Like the first 2 are maybe more a little restricted in when the windows are best for them to be activated. So again, that's why they're at the bottom. But if done correctly, they can be very impactful against the deck. They can be game altering against the deck. But for the exact reasons that John says, they're going to be dead more than they're live, and that's a huge problem with them. They're the windows of activations are super marginally thin.
Yes, I think, and I'll get into why more. I think out of all of these cards, these 2 will be the strongest, going second and going first.
Absolutely.
I think they're just by far and wide the strongest options. So we'll go into extra deck options because obviously, like we talked about in the main portion of the video, Naturia Runic is a very strong deck right now, and it has very easy access to cards like Nat Beast and Archeon.
Very spell heavy, reliant deck.
Yes, this deck is very similar to Striker. It relies on spell cards, so Nat Beast is obviously a strong option. Exterio is going to see a lot of play with the Cyberstein combo in the new Super Heavy Samurai deck. And we also get a new Fusion Deployment S card that can summon this super easily, which is also made bind up Zenmeisters go up in price. So if you have an ulti first just chilling in your binder like I do, you should check that out because they're $75 now randomly.
Nice.
Anyway, so these are 2 extra deck monsters we kind of wanted to talk about. There are probably more extra deck monsters that we could put down here, but
those are the powerhouses, yeah.
In general, 2 very, very strong cards. So now you're probably wondering, well, I'm a Purrely player. I plan on playing the deck. I'm wanting to be informed. How can I stop these things? Your 2 best options are right here, right? So Rivalry will cut off all of these. They can't Lava Golem, they can't Santa Claus, no Kaijus. So Rivalry is a very strong card against certain decks in the meta right now, but it can also protect your towers monsters. And then the only way you're going to be able to stop this Herald of the Abyss are cards like Solemn Judgment. I mean, obviously you could play Magic Jammer or things like that, but I mean, Judgment's going to be the the go-to. You could also even argue that Anti-Spell Fragrance on their turn, because if they can't break your board, most likely you will kill them in the crackback. So that's why we put these 2 here, but I think Rivalry will see a lot of use, maybe even in the main deck of this deck. People start maining the Kaijus and maybe siding Heralds. We see Kaijus and Santa Claus in the main deck in this format to combat a Rise Heart, so I could see this even warranting a main deck slot in this strategy. But that's all I have. Hopefully this insight kind of helped you guys out. I will pass it over to Sinjin, and I'll let him do the outro, and yeah.
All the fun stuff. So I think this deck moving forward is going to be one of the best decks in the format. I think it's too soon to go ahead and say it is the best deck in the format going forward, but easy to say it is one of the better. If nothing else, this is a tier 1 deck moving forward. So this is really cool to look at. If you guys enjoy things like this, let me know so I can continue making them. John's my coach now, so he's helping me kind of get better at the game and everything, and we're just looking forward to YCS Philly, and these are some of the decks we kind of expect to look at, and so hopefully this helps your experience in Philly, and hopefully you guys have a good time. If you guys are there, make sure to come up and say hi. I'm going to be there. Unfortunately, John will not. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to go over more decks as we kind of look forward to kind of flesh out our options and see what we kind of play, and there'll be a little bit of a journey to that. But yeah, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you yet again to John, the MarvelousMilkManTV, for helping us out and going over these decks with us like he does, and playing with it, playtesting with us like he does. So yeah, love your face.